Atlanta, May 1886. A pharmacist named John Pemberton stands in his backyard, stirring a dark liquid mixture in a three-legged brass kettle. He was trying to create a painkiller, a syrup, to cure headaches and soothe nerves in the brutal post-war era. That liquid, when accidentally mixed with carbonated water at a local pharmacy, created a peculiar flavor. Pemberton had no idea that the dark syrup drops in the brass kettle that day would not stop at a small pharmacy counter. It was about to become the center of one of the most complex and strictly guarded financial ecosystems on the planet. But how did a simple mixing formula turn into a massive economic asset? The history of this liquid began with cheap and desperate transactions. John Pemberton gradually sold off his shares of the formula as his health declined, and eventually, a businessman named Asa Candler bought out the entire ownership in 1892 for a mere $2,300. It was Candler who first realized that the value of this drink did not lie in its ingredients, but in the absolute monopoly of information. He began tearing off the labels on the ingredient barrels delivered to the factory, demanding employees never write the formula down, and paying bills under fake names so no one could trace the constituent ingredients. However, it wasn't until 1919, when Ernest Woodruff bought the company and later handed it over to his son Robert Woodruff to run, that the Secrecy was officially weaponized. Woodruff took the sole piece of paper containing the formula and placed it in a bank vault in New York as collateral for the loan to buy the company, turning the mystery into a grand marketing campaign. This is not a story about a delicious beverage recipe. This is a story about how much silence, when capitalized on a global scale, can be worth in billions of dollars. The surface of the issue always deceives us. The public often believes that this secret formula, often referred to as merchandise 7X, is valuable because it creates a perfect, unreplicable flavor, a divine ratio of essential oils, flavorings, and extracts. But looking deep into the true economic nature, flavor was never the greatest barrier. Modern chemists with their gas chromatography and mass spectrometry systems can absolutely isolate 99% of the ingredients in any liquid in the world. The true economic nature of this formula is not a chemical barrier, but a cognitive barrier and an invisible contract of power. It is the sole certificate of legitimacy for the product, preventing any competitor from claiming to be the original. To understand this, we must look at the hidden financial system, the actual operational mechanism that outsiders rarely notice. The core economic power of the secret formula does not lie in selling cans of carbonated water, but in maintaining a massive manufacturing franchise model known as the Coca-Cola system. The parent company in Atlanta, where the secret is held, does not actually produce, bottle, or distribute the cans you hold in your hand. They do only one thing: produce the concentrated syrup, which contains the secret 7X formula, and sell it to independent bottling partners worldwide. This is where silence turns into massive profit margins. By keeping the core syrup formula a secret, the parent company creates an absolute and perpetual dependency from its bottlers. The bottling partners must bear all the heavy capital expenditures, capex, building factories, buying machinery, treating clean water, operating fleets of trucks, dealing with labor unions, and fluctuating sugar prices. Meanwhile, the parent company in Atlanta merely ships compact barrels of syrup with gross profit margins, frequently hovering at 60% or higher, an enormous margin for the fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG industry. Looking at this through market logic, it is highly likely that this profit structure would collapse immediately if the formula were made public. Assuming the model operated in a way where the formula became a public asset, the giant bottling partners could perfectly well mix that syrup themselves, instead of having to buy it from the parent company at premium prices. The secrecy of the formula, therefore, acts as economic handcuffs, tying the entire supply chain to a single node in Atlanta, allowing the parent company to collect a tax on every can sold without having to bear physical supply chain risks. Let's look at the numbers to see the scale of this system. According to Interbrand's 2023 Global Brand Valuation Report, the brand is valued at approximately $58 billion, and the parent company's market capitalization consistently remains above $250 billion. A logical way to understand this is, the vast majority of that $250 billion does not come from brick-and-mortar factories, but from the premium of a brand backed by absolute monopoly. This is a deduction, not an officially published figure, but if this formula lost its secrecy, this premium could evaporate by tens of billions of dollars in just a few months as private labels legalize the copying of the original flavor. So, if you are truly the one holding this formula, what are you holding in your hands, and how has that changed over time? Let's go back to point A, the early days when Asa Candler decided to seal this secret in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. At that time, the central contradiction of holding the secret was very simple. You had an easy-to-make formula, but you had to pretend it was a complex alchemy to stop the pharmacist in the next town from copying it. The information control mechanism was extremely primitive, often just a piece of paper hidden in a local bank safe or living in the heads of a few close associates. The monopoly value at point A was barely defined. It only created a localized curiosity in America, helping Candler sell more syrup to local soda fountains. At that time, the leak risk existed, but the economic consequences were highly linear and finite. If someone in the workshop stole the formula, the worst damage would be the appearance of a few cheap competitors in neighboring states. The economic loss in the event of a leak at point A might only be measured in thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in lost revenue, because the global brand value itself had not yet been established. The holder of the secret back then was like a guard of a small treasure in a village. The pressure was there, but the scale of destruction was limited by the slow flow of information and geographical distribution constraints. But let's shift to point B. If you are the chairman of the board holding this formula right now, the central contradiction has completely transformed. The public is still immersed in a dreamlike image, a romantic myth that only two senior executives know the formula and they never fly on the same flight. But the actual operational truth is that you are no longer protecting a piece of paper. You are protecting a global financial infrastructure. The control mechanism is now a high-tech fortress at the World of Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, with layers of biometric security, motion sensors, and corporate governance protocols so strict that even the board of directors does not have arbitrary access. The monopoly value at present has been confirmed by the market on a macroeconomic level. This formula is not just a barrier to prevent competitors from mimicking. It is the psychological collateral for the stability of millions of retirement portfolios holding the company's stock. And because of that, the leak risk takes on a form more terrifying and devastating than in any previous era. We have an extremely sharp real-world testament to this devastation from 2006. Joya Williams, a high-level administrative assistant at the corporate headquarters, along with accomplices, stole top-secret documents and a vial containing a product for formula sample in development. They approached the arch-rival PepsiCo, offering to sell this core secret for $1.5 million. But what is the bizarre part? PepsiCo not only refused to buy, but they immediately reported the entire incident to the parent company and the FBI, leading to Joya Williams' arrest and an 8-year prison sentence. Why did Pepsi refuse a golden opportunity to steal their eternal rival's secret? That is the most profound economic perspective on the pressure of holding a secret today. If looked at through market logic, $1, $5 million is a ridiculously cheap price for a rival's core asset. But Pepsi fully understood that in the modern economic ecosystem, illegally possessing the trade secrets of a multi-billion-dollar entity is legal and PR suicide. The fallout from a leak is not just decades-long litigation that could bankrupt any tainted company, but it also shatters the oligopoly equilibrium that both giants benefit from. They need each other to exist with distinct secrets to maintain brand boundaries. If everything becomes exactly the same, the war shifts to a race to the bottom, and the profit margins of the entire industry will evaporate. The disparity between these two timelines is a classic lesson in valuing intangible assets. In 1892, at point A, the $2,300 Asa Candler spent was the price to buy a physical product and hope to sell it for a profit. At point B today, the company is protecting an entity whose brand value alone is approximately $58 billion, and its $250 billion market capitalization relies on the market's absolute faith in the integrity of that entity. Silence at point A was worth only a few $1,000s, but silence at point B is worth tens of billions in secrecy premium. Buy the added value that only exists as long as the secret remains unrevealed. If you held it in the beginning, you were a merchant trying to create a mystery for profit. But if you hold it right now, you are carrying the pressure of a macroeconomic risk manager, where even the slightest slip could trigger massive stock sell-offs, wiping out the wealth of millions of shareholders. The mystery is no longer a sales tool. It has fossilized into the very core of the long-term brand legacy, a black hole that sucks in all curiosity and turns it into endless cash flow. At this point, we need to pause and clarify the level of certainty of what has just been analyzed. The historical events regarding Pemberton, Candler, the bottling system, brand valuation, market capitalization, and the case of Joya Williams being arrested by the FBI in 2006 are facts verified from public records. However, the calculation that the collapse of the secret could wipe out tens of billions of dollars in market cap due to the copycat effect, and the perspective on the oligopoly equilibrium of the 2006 case are economic hypotheses and interpretations put forward by the channel based on market logic, not statements officially acknowledged by the parent company. And the most fascinating part of this economic game always lies in the moves beyond the original product itself. Let's look back at Asa Candler, the man who laid the groundwork for this strict secrecy system. He became incredibly wealthy, but his greatest wealth in his later years didn't just come from selling that brown liquid. He used the massive stable cash flow from selling the exclusive syrup to pivot, becoming a real estate tycoon, founding the Central Bank and Trust Corporation, investing in infrastructure, and eventually becoming the mayor of Atlanta itself. He understood a core capitalist principle. A secret formula, no matter how brilliant, is just short-term cash flow. True power is using that cash flow to acquire tangible assets and political power that never disappear. Today, the ecosystem born from that secret formula does not just generate static profits. It is pumping an estimated 2.2 billion servings of beverages into the market every single day globally. A silence maintained from a brass kettle in 1886 is now directly shaping the consumption habits of more than a quarter of the world's population every 24 hours.